everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve. I am your host, Eve Richards. I am really excited today to have a very special guest with us today. Peter Alice is a veteran actor, director, co-founder of ZA Studio with locations in Los Angeles, Honolulu, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and online. I am actually training at ZA Studio. So it is so wonderful to have Peter join us today. Peter is known for his role on Seinfeld, The Sopranos. He's been on Spider-Man 2, Defenseless, Without a Trace, NYPD Blue, ER. Gosh, he has appeared in over 100 films and TV shows. And also, he speaks great Italian, even though he's Greek. And he studied cooking in Italy. Oh my gosh. The list goes on and on and on. So I'm really, really excited to speak with Peter, and all of us to speak with Peter today. So please watch this episode on the Discovery Pod with Eve YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Google, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever podcast is available. If you have any questions or have any questions regarding what I'm wearing, please, you could send me a DM on Instagram at Eve Richards or the website everichards.com. I am joined by my co-host today, Tony Blass. Tony is a marketing professional. He's collaborated with brands such as Porsche, The Serrano, to name a few. Tony is also an actor. Fun fact, Tony and I actually worked on a limited series several months back, and we are actually collaborating on a feature film which is set in Sweden, and there's a possibility we might be doing a drama series as well together. So Tony, tell us, what are you excited about working on besides what you and I are working on? Is there anything that you're working on that you would like our audience to know?
I'm not like Eve. I can't do literally 5 or 6 things at a time. So I'm not doing anything but this podcast and the rehearsing for the feature film we're doing in Europe, and then the next fundraising for the next feature film, which will be done the following year.
A drama series.
A drama series.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So I was just thinking, obviously, Peter, we're going to be interviewing Peter. Peter is Greek American. And I was just thinking about some of the places that I would love to visit. I was dating someone who's Greek for a very long time. So obviously, I'm all about Greece, right? So I want to go to Greece because I love the food. I love the people. I dated someone for a long time who's Greek. Peter's Greek. So what about you? Any places around the world that you would like to visit?
Well, again, I've done a lot of visiting in Asia and Europe, and at this point in my life, I'm really more about focusing on acting. So we will be shooting in Sweden for 2 weeks. So that's kind of where my focus is right now.
Got it. And last question that I had for you. So your father was actually an actor as well. Is there anything that you would like to share about him?
Well, the thing is, my dad is a true survivor. He had his first heart attack when he was 25 years old.
Wow.
Open heart surgery in 1968 when he was just turning 30.
Oh, my God.
So then, and he finally ended up having a heart transplant in 1985. Wow. When he came back from the transplant, he said, I'm not going to be a salesman anymore. I'm going to be an actor. And we were like, Dad, just get well, do what you can. And by the way, there have been bills, open heart surgery, heart transplants, not an inexpensive thing. So we were encouraging him to go back part-time into his regular salesman job, and he just wasn't going to do it.
Wow.
So his story is one morning he heard gunshots outside the window and in their condo complex, and he opened the door and they were having a scene on television there. And so he asked the second AD or somebody, gee, how do I get to be in this? And that's where his career started. He has some prominent small roles in things like Air America. I think his best role is in Fight Club.
Wow.
Because he was in the hair replacement infomercial.
Wow.
That is used in the beginning of the show. But what's great about it is his reaction was a little over the top.
Yeah.
So it was actually, they used the cutout scenes for Fight Club. So my dad is there.
Wow.
Amazed at this spray on hair. So
Incredible.
yeah, he is quite a life.
What an inspirational story, and so glad to hear after going through something so challenging that he wanted to change his life and become an actor. So good for him, extremely motivational. So it's a good lesson for everyone out there that regardless of what you're going through, you can sort of change your life around. Tony's dad is a great example. He was in sales, but decided after all the challenges he went through to become an actor. So great lessons to pursue your dreams. So I'm all for that. Thank you for sharing. I am so excited to be introducing Peter Alice. He's actually one of my teachers at ZA Studio. Peter Alice is a veteran actor, director, co-founder of ZA Studio with locations in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Hawaii, Chicago, New York, and online. You've seen Peter in Seinfeld, The Sopranos. He was actually on NYPD Blue, ER, Without a Trace, Defenseless, Spider-Man, SWAT. The list goes on and on and on. Peter is an incredible gifted actor who has an uncanny resemblance to Robert De Niro. So, gosh, ladies and gentlemen, what an honor to have my teacher with us today. Peter, welcome to the Discovery Pod with Eve. Hi, Peter. I am fortunate to train with you and Rob Zimmerman at ZA Studio. To become a successful actor, training is required. What sets ZA Studio apart from others, and can you describe your teaching style?
That's a great question. First off, I would say that the key thing is that we're a multi-school where there's not one particular style. And the teacher that taught me in particular was a wonderful Broadway director named Milton Costello, but I was influenced by a lot of other directors and filmmakers from my days at Circle Rep and in New York as well, and my partner as well with the Old Globe. So I think because of our diverse training and our diverse backgrounds, put it together, we're open to many different techniques, which teaches most actors and directors to work with pretty much anybody in any particular style.
Wonderful.
So, which sort of traditional style of acting do you personally favor?
That's closer to method, but my guy was Elia Kazan, the old school psychology into behavior, we call it. So that's pretty much the main technique that we use as they're shutting the door on me. Of course.
Just keep going.
I'm so sorry. They're going to kill me.
One last question, if we can. So you were fortunate to be on Seinfeld. How did you get that role? And I know you went to Boston University with Jason Alexander. So how was it working with him?
It was really refreshing being with Jason again after all these years. And that was really part of the challenge. And Seinfeld thing I really want to say is just knowing the fact that you're a good actor and you can bring the confidence and truth, the humor, and learn what we call the Abbott and Costello. I was the straight man for those brilliant comics, and it was just a pleasure working with Larry, David, and that whole team. And I like to use that as part of my teaching, is teaching everybody what we call an Abbott and Costello.
Yes.
People cannot play the same role. So I was very fortunate. I was a very hot actor at the time, and I got a good opportunity for myself. But full circle brought me back into directing. And before we close the gates, I just want to say, please come out and see Dinner with Friends by Donald Margulies, which is opening April 5th at the Zephyr Theater, 7456 Melrose Avenue. Runs for 4 weeks, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 8, and Sunday at 2 o'clock. The wonderful cast. They're giving me the signal. I've got to go.
Okay.
I'll try to get back to you.
Thank you, Peter. We'll see you again soon.
And we'll see you at the play. Wow, that was a lot. I was really interested in talking to Peter more about acting and why he wanted to become a teacher and his acting techniques and so forth. we'll hopefully get back to him in a future podcast. Today he did a class last night in San Francisco, and he was on his way back to LA, but due to the winds, he was diverted to Las Vegas, and yada, yada, yada. Several hours went by, and he's not going to make it today. So I'm glad we at least got to talk to him a little bit. And Eve, the host of the show, is a student of his. And so what we're going to do is, since you've been watching some of these, listening to or watching some of these podcasts along the way, what we'd like to do is interview Eve for the rest of the show, because it'd be interesting to get to know her. We all get introduced when we are co-hosting, I should say, but we never get to hear about Eve. So I really want to find out more about Eve. Now, I met Eve just last year on a film set, and we became very close. We were actually trapped in a kind of a disaster ourselves. There was a fire on the freeway, and I was trying to take her back to her home in Beverly Hills, and it took about 3 hours to do that. And so we really got to talking about life and what's important. She was born in England and raised by two legal professionals. One became a judge, and they expected her to follow along in their footsteps into the legal profession. But I think Eve had other ideas about wanting to contribute to the world in different ways. She's a fashion blogger. She is involved in many different kinds of charities and other things as well. I'm getting my buyout here because I haven't introduced Eve before, but in the marketing realm, she's showcased strategic thinking and a community-focused approach along with her parents' values. And then her theatrical journey include standout roles such as Victoria Curry in Surviving the Cartel, Season 1, a nurse in the stage production of A Streetcar Named Desire, which is interesting because Peter mentioned Elia Kazan and how influential he was. Mm-hmm. And so Streetcar must have been an amazing production.
It was.
And so, and as Eve told you, we will be being in a film together this summer. So I guess we want to just jump right in and ask you, what is driving you in all these many different careers that you have going on?
That's an excellent question. So I was very, very fortunate to have two very loving parents, my mother and my dad. My mom was a judge. She passed away at a very early age. She was in her 50s, and my dad unexpectedly passed away last year. He was in his 70s. My father was so smart, and I literally did not realize this. He went to Harvard when he was 18, actually interned with Bobby Kennedy. And when he passed, my aunts and all of his colleagues were sharing all this anecdotes about my dad. And I just said to myself, there's a lot more for me to do. My parents had always said, challenge yourself, right? And my dad always said to me, Eve, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. But I think specifically after losing my father last year, there was this paradigm shift in my thinking in terms of understanding how precious life is, but also very short. And I just wanted to use my voice more in a very positive way to not educate, but awareness of certain things. I'm all about positivity. So what I want to do is legacy to my parents. I couldn't have been proud to have such wonderful parents. My brother would share the same, and all my family members in Boston would share the same. So this is what keeps me motivated on a daily basis, because my dad, who was so smart, did not know he was dying. But at the end, when he was dying, he lost that ability to be himself. But the one thing he had his brains. And I said, after my father passed away and I went through the grieving process, I want to use my time here on earth very wisely.
That's wonderful. Well, I think you're doing an amazing job, and you're so energetic and so enthusiastic. You really encourage people to follow their dreams. And I love your style. And you've got me working out, losing weight, getting new clothes. It's all good. But I would like to also now, since you're the guest, I would like to introduce my co-host, the producer of the show.
Executive producer. And PR manager.
No.
Roger Neal, who started in the mailroom at MGM in 1981 and very quickly rose up the ranks to produce Tom Jones and represent. Did I see
Burt Ward, Robin from
Batman?
So many stars. Hello. Hey, Tony. How are you? By the way, I just want to tell the viewers. You're confused. We're going to unconfuse you real quick. I just want to tell the viewers. So this is what happened. And listen, when you're doing a podcast like this that is audio and video, I think it's almost sort of like live television, right? So anything can happen on the way to the studio, and that's exactly what happened today. On the way to the studio, our guest, Peter, called and said, hey, I'm stuck. We couldn't fly into Burbank. They wouldn't let us land because of the winds we're having here in Southern California right now. They diverted him to Vegas. He sat in Vegas, got on the plane, shut the door. The door opened again. They opened the door again, not leaving yet. So we said, zoom in. He zoomed in. And we did a little bit of an interview, and then they said, okay, we're going to fly now. And so they shut the door again. So we're flying literally right here by the seat of our pants, right?
Yeah.
But this is when you've got great host, because Tony is a great co-host. He's picking up the slack. We were prepared for Peter, but it's now going to be all about Eve. Hey, how about that? So, and I just want to tell everybody, I do handle Eve, and I do produce this show, and I'm just honored to do it because I believe Eve is a great talent.
Thank you.
She's a really good actress, but she's a businesswoman. She's an entrepreneur. Eve is one of the, and when you start to produce a show for somebody, you don't really know how they're going to be. But Eve showed me very quickly that she is on top of her game at all times. She's such a researcher. And this is as we're taping this is like our 6th episode that we're taping for this new season. And every guest that we have on, I send her information, but she finds out so much more than I send her. And she comes up with all these factoids and all these things. She's doing such an amazing job. So, Eve, I'm just proud to produce this show and honored to work with you. And Tony's a great co-host. He does it. Melissa Neesmith, who is the other co-host for this season, she does a fantastic job too. In fact, she was supposed to co-host today. This is how crazy this episode is.
Yes.
Melissa was supposed to co-host today. She's an actress. Got hired for a television series that she's shooting in downtown LA, and we said at the last minute, "Oh, Tony, you need to co-host today." So this is one of those wacky, crazy episodes, but you know what? It's just fun, right?
Yes, mid-season.
But see, this is where the pedal hits the metal, right? This is where we see what host and co-host are made of. And it's really great. So listen, you've got the test has been passed. It's fantastic. Yeah. One of the things that I found very interesting about Eve is a lot of people maybe have watched this show now. They've been watching it and listening to it, and you say, what's that accent she has? Where is she? Where in the world is Eve Richards from? So I found that when I first found out where she was from and about her background, to me it was very fascinating. So I think it'd be great to let the listeners and the viewers know, where are you from?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I don't even know myself because I've got a hodgepodge of everything. I was born in London. My mother is mixed. My father was actually African. Very proud of it. And I got to say, my father had 15 brothers and sisters, all from the same mother and father. My dad was the oldest. He passed away in 2023. He was 78. But the one thing that I took from that was it doesn't matter how many kids you have. All of my dad's siblings are well educated. My dad at age 16 had a scholarship to go to Harvard. And so I grew up in London, went to high school in London, but because my father went to Boston when he was a teenager, Boston became the adopted home for all of my family members. So I consider Boston home, but right out of college, I moved to New York City because I wanted to get into advertising. However, advertising was paying so little and the rents in New York City are so high. I started working on a contract basis with American Express, got hired to work with American Express in San Francisco. It was such a great opportunity. I traveled around the world. I remember we celebrated American Express's 150th anniversary at the Louvre in Paris. It was such an honor to work for this brand, American Express. But at the time, I was so young that I did not appreciate it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I worked for American Express. But it was an honor to work for that company. But going back to Roger's questions, I'm just a hodgepodge of someone who's lived in so many different places. I've got family in New Zealand as well. So I'm a product of the world, but also very proud of my father's heritage, his African heritage. And so that's something that he was very proud of. And I'm learning to appreciate it now that I get older than I was when I was younger, because I really didn't know too much about it. But again, I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my parents, proud of my family, and just how smart everyone is. My brother and my aunts, everybody.
That's amazing, right?
Absolutely.
So you were born in London, correct? Wow. So that's why I detect an accent, because it's like some people they talk and they have this accent, and I look at, when I think about you, I think of you on an international level.
Yes.
Not a domestic level, but an international. You're very international,
yes.
Right? Your look and your hair. Her hair is great, because if you meet Eve one time, when you see that blonde hair walking towards you, you know it's Eve.
That was the first thing Roger said
Absolutely.
when he met me.
I said, oh, the media's going to love you because you got such, your hair color is so fantastic. And, it's very funny or interesting is that Jean Harlow had this color. And
Platinum blonde.
Platinum blonde. And Marilyn Monroe would watch Jean Harlow's movies. And when she went to Max Factor, when she became a star, I want the color that Jean Harlow had. And so he did that for Marilyn Monroe as well. Wow. That's how Marilyn Monroe got that color. So that color hair stands out.
Yeah.
Right? Not everybody has it. Mm-hmm. And I think just with your skin tone, it really and your eyes, it just really makes you stand out. So as an actress, you've got different looks that you could just meld into any kind of character I think that you'd want to.
Yes, thank you.
Well, let me ask you, what made you initially want to go into fashion?
That's a great question. So at a young age, my dad always said to me, Eve, whenever you leave this house and you go into the world, because no one really knew how to perceive me, as you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Is she black? What's her ethnicity? My dad always said, always dress accordingly. My dad said to me, if you learn about fashion and you dress respectfully, people are going to appreciate you. People are going to basically recognize you, because my dad said, for him as a minority, what set him apart was his dressing. Mm-hmm. My dad was someone who had champagne taste. He wasn't afraid of it. He mm-hmm. loved first class. He wasn't because he worked hard. Mm-hmm. And my dad said to me, Eve, this is how I would like you to live your life. Always shoot for the stars. But he always said, when you go out, I want you to represent the family well. So even if I'm traveling, I try to dress very well, because that's how my father raised me, to always dress well. And secondly, as I was growing up, I remember being in a relationship with someone, and I felt so insecure because I thought I wasn't skinny. I wasn't good enough for this person. I remember having a lot of scars from that relationship, but I used fashion to help me overcome all of the negativity.
Wow.
Because fashion is something that I think can be used in such a positive light. You don't have to wear Gucci, Prada, but you make a statement when you go out. And so I use fashion to represent my thoughts and how I'm feeling. Lastly about this, when I lived in San Francisco, I worked for an organization on a voluntary basis as Dress for Success. I felt so empowered styling these women who came from different backgrounds, but getting these women ready to go out and interview it just made me feel proud to be a part of this community, that I could help a woman improve her life. And so that's how powerful fashion is.
I just realized, I'm sitting here thinking, who does she remind me of? She's a modern day Josephine Baker. It's exactly who she reminds me of.
Wow.
And my brain thinks in terms of TV and film and music. That's my business, right? So that's how my brain thinks. All right, Tony, back to you.
Okay. Well, the thing is, the film that we're working on,
Yes.
One of the things that I think I can say about it, we're heavy NDAs to not reveal anything of it, but I think the one thing is that the entire cast is international.
Yes.
And I think we all have different backgrounds, different accents, and that is not really explained, because I think in the film they want to kind of create a sort of inclusive universe where it could be anywhere, and the things that happen could happen to you, or it could be another part of the world.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that is fun.
Yes.
Working with a cast that's from all around the world.
Yeah.
So, but getting back to the fashion thing, I have to tell you, after 3 years of the pandemic and basically wearing shorts and T-shirts around the house, having to come back and meeting you even on that set in November, I was, after we talked for 3 hours, I was like, I need to do something to step up this game. And so I actually found and it's difficult at my size. So I found an African-American clothing designer,
Wow.
Ladrius Campbell.
Oh, amazing.
And that's the suit I'm wearing now. I bought.
Amazing.
I have 3 suits.
It looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's what I love about it is it looks elegant.
Yeah.
And it is, right? It's nice fabric, but it's also casual.
Wow.
And the pants too they could be worn to work out in or to go to a red carpet event in.
Incredible.
And so I saw you having this great versatility and sort of ability to go day into night, as I think they say in that business.
Yep.
And but always dressed to the nines. And when like Roger was saying, with the hair and everything, and the outfits, when Eve's in the room, she's there. So when she asked me to co-host this show with her, I said, you know what, I got to bring it. I can't be just showing up in pandemic clothes.
Thank you. Again, it's going back to fashion just based on my upbringing, where my dad said I'm a minority, right? So it's not based on me being English or this. Basically, when I go into a room, people look at me as a minority, and I want people to look at me differently. I use clothing to stand out, because people would want to marginalize you or put you in this box, and I don't want to be put in a box because someone thinks I'm black. I'm Eve, and that's who I represent. I represent myself, I represent my mom, I represent my dad, my brother, and my family members. So every day when I go out, my dressing is a true representation of me. And dressing or fashion, as you can tell, in movies, fashion is so important because it tells a story. And I use fashion to tell my story of who I am, my upbringing, and I don't want people to marginalize me and think because she's black or she's this. And so that's what I use fashion for.
So what made you go from, of course, fashion goes along with TV and film, right?
Yeah.
But what made you want to go from fashion to becoming an actress? How did Eve decide in her mind, hey, I'm just going to take a left turn here, and I'm going to become an actress? How did that happen?
That's a good question. So when I was younger, in my young age, my parents actually had me I was training to become an actress. However, my father, being the person he was, said to my mom, no, she has to become an attorney. I got accepted into law school. So I had done a lot of productions when I was very, very young, but gave it up. Went and majored in poli-science and then got into law school, but I did not do law school. My mom unexpectedly passed away. So I deferred my law school. I did not want, deferred for a few years, but I realized at the time that, you know what, mom is gone. It's only dad. I want to do something that would make me happy. And I have to say, my father never said this to me, but he told my younger brother, he said, I really wish I had given Eve that go ahead to do this when she was 15, 16, 17, because my dad got to see a few things that I did. And my brother said he was so proud of you. And that made him so, here's my father who was so strict. But then towards the end, he told my younger brother, Eve should have become an actress when she was 5, 6, 7. I couldn't be more proud. And so that is basically how I decided to get into acting. But acting for me now is about telling positive stories that I think can impact someone else's life, because my father's death impacted my life. And any story that I tell, whatever I do, is to honor my mom and father, because my father gave my brother just what I wanted, validation from him. And he told my brother, he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want me to know he was proud of me. So,
well, anybody who's out there who's an actor or an actress, and one of the things, if you remember Jeremy Priven,
yes,
this guy wins an Emmy Award, but he still was going to acting class.
Yeah.
He won a Golden Globe, still going to acting class. That's one of the things I noticed about you, Eve, is that, you're so accomplished, but you're studying to better your craft.
Yes.
Right? So many actors and actresses, they get a series or they get on a television show or they get on a movie. I don't have to do acting class anymore. I've made it. But I think the actors and actresses who really are doing it for the craft are the ones that continue to study even after they have success in front of the camera.
Yes.
They continue to study.
Of course.
So I think you will be an inspiration to a lot of actors and actresses, and a great example to a lot of actors and actresses.
Yes, I am very fortunate to train with a Zia Studio. Peter is such an amazing teacher. Besides Peter, co-founder as well as Rob Zimmerman, I remember I was training at Merge, our Heber studio. A friend of mine who trains in San Francisco with Zia Studio had said, Eve, you've got to come to this class. And I've been with them for 2 years, not long enough, but I think the beauty about acting is seeing how you get better and seeing the journey and how it's been amazing to see where I was 2 years ago and to see where I am today. And one of the things that I remember so much about Peter from my very first acting scene that I put up, it was Shirley Valentine. It was about being on vacation in Greece, and because Peter is Greek and I was dating a Greek guy, and Peter kept making fun of me, so I so wish he was on for a while. But acting is a journey, and you need the community. One of the things my parents always said, stay humble, regardless of success. Being in this community at Zia Studio has given me that just understanding that I have other actors who are aiming to become something better. You just never know, but I feel fortunate to have found this community, and I want to continue getting better because, again, it's about improving my skills, working with different actors, seeing how different people are. So it just makes me a better actor as well.
Awesome.
Well, and the director that we're working with, Gabriel, has we have long rehearsals.
Yes.
And they go far beyond what's on the page. Yeah, exactly.
Every week.
And so I feel that it's sort of almost like a master class in acting itself. How do you feel about working with Gabriel?
It's been, first I want to thank Tony because it was through the project that we worked on, the limited series we worked on, which might be supposed to be on Apple or Amazon. It was through that association that Tony told me about this project. They had an actress who had left the project, and that's how I got to audition with Gabriel.
Wow.
Audition process was very hard. It was 4 hours. It was a 4-hour audition, but I impressed myself, and I don't like to say this because sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do. But I was so well prepared. I remember going in, and he had this concern because of my blonde hair, but I decided to have a little wig and tone down on the makeup and all of that. So I impressed myself to see how well I did. But Gabriel has been fantastic to work with. So between having that rehearsals with him, being a part of ZA, I feel like I'm getting better as an actor, more confident, and I feel like I could tackle different roles now.
And speaking of Book of Patricide, that's the name of the I don't know, so the
limited series, yes.
Limited series we're working on. But I had actually applied for several roles.
Yeah.
And I had heard from people that they loved your audition, but I had to go through some bit of rejection here and there. They found other people, but I was so happy that I got the role I did because I was working with Eve. And the thing that impressed me is that when you came in as the character, you were in the brightest pink outfit I'd ever seen, and I believe there was a hat involved.
Yes.
And so it was you sort of like inventing this character through fashion.
Yes.
And that's what I think drew my attention, and also the director came over and he was so impressed that Eve had thought this much about the character, and then it defined who she was in the scene, and it really, what was the central focus of the scene, because where we were at it, can I say it was a church?
Yes.
And when she stood up to make a proclamation, everybody's attention was all on her, and wow, what an impression
it
you
was
made.
amazing. Again, it was one of those things where I wanted to make a statement for the character. I had thought about it, and I knew I wanted her to be over the top. It's comedy, and how often do you get to play comedy? So, and colors and wardrobe, again, all of that I thought would be really significant in terms of trying to define this role.
Do you was rejection, and we're all in show business.
Yes.
So no matter what end of the show business spectrum you're on, there's rejection.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
So was that something difficult as an actor? Because a lot of actors and actresses cannot handle rejection.
It's hard.
If you could give advice to an actor or an actress that's up and coming, that's watching this or listening to this today, what would be your advice to them on how to handle rejection when you audition for something? You've made choices as an actor, you're invested in it, and you just want the role so bad, and then it doesn't go your way. What advice can you give?
That's a very good question. And I think I'm constantly evolving in terms of knowing how to handle rejection. But because of where I am in my life, and because I'm involved in so many different things, I try not to let it get to me, because our casting director had said, all you want to do is go out and do your best. Give your best performance. Don't think about the rest, because you have no control. It's not about you. They might have the specificity of the role, the type of person they're looking for. You might be the best person, but they have something else in mind. So my advice would be just learn to move on, focus on the next thing, and think about becoming the bigger, better actor that you would become. So rejection is part of the game. It's a very, very difficult thing to overcome, but it's a numbers game. Some we get and some we don't get, but it's nothing about you.
That's great advice. So where does Eve Richards, as a business person and as an actress, see yourself in 5 years?
Wow, that's a very good question. My goal would be to have that, what everyone wants to have, right? And I think it's having that recognition global. I think once you have it, it's not so much about the money, but I would love to be associated with a project with a named director that I think I can be out there promoting international where people recognize me for my work. And I think for me, 5 years from now, that's what I would love to see myself, where I've made that name, where people get to know me internationally. They get to know the quality of my work and who I represent, my brand as a person. Those are the goals, and that's what I'm aiming for every day. Again, my goal is to continue to do good work in whatever capacity, motivate others, men, women all over the world, because we have a global audience, to challenge themselves. Remember, don't say you cannot do it. Just go out and try it. You never know when you would make it big. So,
okay. And real quickly, if you could pick any actor or actress that you would want to work with in a film, who would it be?
Gosh, I love Meryl Streep. I love Julia Roberts. I think they are fantastic. I also love Jennifer Lawrence, director. I love Christopher Nolan. I just think he's incredible. Or, of course, everyone wants to work with Steven Spielberg.
And so now we're getting down to, this has gone fast, by the way.
Oh.
Super fast. Eve, if you could have dinner with 3 people, I'm going to turn the tables on her. You could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be?
Gosh, that's a good one. I think I would love to have dinner with Oprah, just because I think she's just such an inspiration. Dead or alive, I would have loved to have dinner with Nelson Mandela because of all the things he's been through in his life. I think the third one would be the Queen of England, just because I think to have that position that she did at such an early age, and she literally grew to become that leader, would be another great person that I would have loved to have dinner with.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about ethics and your word being your bond. I know that when you were on the set that day, you had turned down a competing role that was actually paying a lot of money.
Yes.
And it was a role you really had wanted.
Yes.
But you had made the commitment to show up and do the job.
Yes.
And so tell me, how do you deal with that sort of, I don't know, disappointment or a challenge to keep your word and let go of things you might otherwise want to
Very good question. And sometimes in life, it's not about the money. My work integrity means more to me than money. I think it's so important for me to go out and earn the respect, but also I want people to know I'm an easygoing talent. I don't want people to think I'm a prima donna. I'm very, very easygoing. I always want to strive to be that person who's always about integrity. Once I give my commitment to something, I need to stick through and live up to that expectation, because it's such a small industry. I don't want to burn any bridges.
Well, that's great advice.
Absolutely. Well, you and I, Tony, are gonna pretend like we're Eve for a couple seconds
good. Well,
here.
let me poof my
We got
hair
about
out.
a minute. We got about a minute and 10 seconds left in this episode. So if you want to tune in and listen to the Discovery Pod with Eve, you can tune in. How can people hear us?
I think we're on every major podcast: Apple, Amazon.
Spotify.
There you go. That's a great way.
Yeah.
And also you can go to the YouTube channel.
There you go.
Which is Eve Richards, right?
The Discovery Pod with Eve.
The Discovery Pod with Eve. See, I still have to go there.
That's right.
Well, we haven't aired our first show yet, so.
And so we hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we hope that in this crazy way, you've been able to know now more about our host and our fearless leader here on the Discovery Pod with Eve Richards. So please, on behalf of Tony Blass and Eve Richards, your normal regular host, I'm executive producer Roger Neal, saying, hey, join us again next Thursday as a brand new episode will drop. Right, Eve?
Right, and thank you so much, Roger and Tony. This has been wonderful. And of course, Tony over there as well. Thank you all.